Hi, and welcome. Thank you all for being here today for art activation from here to there, bringing art around the world. My name is Sage Bandicoot. I'm a project manager for the Burning Man Civic Activation Department, and I'm also one of the producers for this call. This call is a part of our Global Activation series, and we started this series about a year ago in order to highlight community-led projects from all over the world and provoke conversations to inspire activations, specifically in these areas: arts, which is today, civics, community, ecosystems, events, and grant making. And this is, like I said, the last call in our series and also the 14th one that we've hosted. We've had over 2,000 participants throughout the calls and 45 different speakers from all over the world. So it's been an honor producing these. I'm so grateful for all of you who have joined, our hosts, our speakers, and everybody who has contributed along the way, because it really doesn't happen without all of you being present. And without much more ado, I'm very happy to pass the mic off to one of my colleagues who has been a fundamental part of these calls. He was our first host and is now closing us out. This is Burning Man Project's Civic Arts Coordinator, Joe Michetta.
Thank you, Sage. Thanks everybody for being here. I am very excited to be wrapping up not just the last art activation call, but the last call of the series. As Sage said, we've had a lot of fun, we've learned a lot, and got to speak with a lot of really skilled and devoted artists. What we're going to do with a lot of the information that we've learned from these events is compile that into what we're calling a Civic Arts Toolkit, which we're hoping to make as an offering for artists to take what we've learned from all these artists and develop their own work and advance their offerings as well. So feel free to start putting questions in the chat at any time. I'll be watching that as we go through the presentations, and then when we get to the Q&A section, I'll start calling those out. Also, if you have anything that you're interested in seeing compiled into something like a Civic Arts Toolkit that you think could be really useful for the public to know, we'd love your feedback about that as well. So I'm going to intro Marianela Fuentes, one of my favorite people in the world to work with. She is based in Mexico City. We're going to be talking about Ichiro, her piece that first went to Black Rock City and has had quite a journey. It's gone to, what's the next? Washington, D.C., Catharsis on the Mall regional event. It's also found a temporary home in a hotel on display in D.C., until it then moved to San Jose, where I got to work with Marianela in a partnership that Burning Man did with the city of San Jose called Playa de Paseo. And now we are slated for an installation at one of Google's new headquarters for a permanent installation. So we're going to hear a little bit about all of those things. Marianela, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you for inviting me to this beautiful activation. Yeah, well, my name is Marianela Fuentes. I'm from the Northeast, from Mexico, Saltillo, Coahuila. And this region is known for being a dinosaur cemetery. So yeah, you want to start with the presentation? So yeah, today I'm here to tell you about Ichiro's Sacred Beings and about my experience with Burning Man and the challenges of bringing art from Mexico to the USA. And well, yeah. Yes, so this is Ichiro's head. My journey began when I was a little girl. At the age of 5, my mother took me on a walk to the desert in Real de Catorce, which is where I saw by first time the art of the Wiraricas, or also known as Huichols. And I was really fascinated by their beautiful art, very colorful, covered with sacred animals, spirits, and magic. And as I grow older, I fell down to create an art inspired by their symbolisms. And then my first time in Burning Man, I feel the call to create an art piece. I feel that Burning Man is like a ceremony, And that week in the desert is capable of create amazing awareness and perfect synchronicity. And then in my second year, we brought a sculpture that was installed outside of Lagrange camp. And it was beautiful to see how burners interact with the artwork. They made me to understand the importance of giving and share your gifts. And then the following month, I went on a meditation retreat where I had the vision of creating this sculpture of the dinosaur filled with beads. And then when I came back from the retreat, I told my idea to one of my closest friends, Gustavo. And then I told him that I wanted to bring art to La Playa. And while I was researching and how to make it happen, I discovered that Burning Man has this honoraria. So I registered the project on my birthday. I remember I was finishing everything. And then they accept me and they give us the honoraria, which was really amazing. And we simultaneously implemented a Kickstarter campaign, and also my camp helped with the cost of transportation. And then, yeah, seeing this project through was a real challenge. I had to learn the way Americans work, which is very different from how we do things in Mexico. And after I finished the creative concept, we did a lot of drawings and renders. And then I realized that bringing art to Burning Man is not just about being creative. We spent many hours trying to understand the best way to build the dinosaur with the right materials that would be resistant for the dust storms, windstorms, rain, people jumping. I was worried for all of that, but it was very pleasant to see the respect that burners show to the piece. And then, yeah, we create the plans with the safety for attendants, and then transporting the sculpture from Mexico to Burning Man was another big challenge. I had to acquire insurance in case of any damage during transportation. And we also don't really do that in Mexico. So we had to learn about the regulations, about permits, and language barrier was always a challenge. But all this hard work was worth it. Once the truck arrived to Burning Man, everything started to flow. It was really beautiful to see how burners and artists came to help us, and art support really helps. The manager with who we was working, she was really amazing also, Tiffany, and she speaks perfect Spanish, that helps. So I think the considerations that Burning Man has for artists like me are really important, because without all of that it would be so hard to bring art to La Playa. And then, yeah, Ichiro is 100% Mexican art piece, and it has become a moving artwork with great acceptance in the United States. I believe it's because the sacred worship and the practice of the Huichol is very apparent in the beadwork. There you can see every beadwork is applied by hand. Then Ichiro is an exact replica of Abella francoilensis, which is a dinosaur from the Cretaceous period from 72 million years ago. And it's not just an art installation. It's basically an execution of a beautiful dream from me and my friends. And it's an invitation to be aware of the present and of the extinctions of these beautiful beings. It's an opportunity to balance between the material and spiritual work, because it's filled by all these sacred symbols that for Mexicans it's very important. We have these traditions, and I try to show that in this artwork. And then, yeah, so we use this witch-hole art bit to decorate the entire dinosaur. And the art piece was made in resin with a steel core, and then is covered with an epoxy glue, and all these beadworks applied by hand. They are made of crystal. The art piece is 11 meters long, 4 meters high, and it took 8 months to complete. So the artwork was presented, as you said, Joe, in 2018 in Burning Man. And every day at the sunset, we had a ritual, a meditation ritual performed by by Ichiro, which is my spiritual teacher and a big inspiration for this artwork. And in these rituals, then I find out how important was to do that, because we met so many people that in the future invite us to be part of wonderful projects. So that door could only be open in the serendipity of Burning Man. And then, yeah, for the creation of the artwork, a group of incredible people gathered together. The paleontologists Arturo Gonzalez and Jose Lopez, who give me access to the fossils to make the replica. Actually, Jose Lopez, which is a very good friend of mine, he found the dinosaur in 1995 in my state, in Coahuila. Also, Saray Carrillo, Jaime Flores, Vicente Berlanga, Guillermo de Leon, and other witch-hole artisans were part of the project. As you can imagine, to do all this beadwork by hand, it takes a lot of time. And then my friends in Mexico, Gustavo, my camp, they help us also. So that's why I was saying that to work as a team is so important to create an art piece like this, at least for me. And then I really, really feel very grateful that the honoraria existed, because without this type of helps, it would be very hard for artists like me to create this work. And then in 2019, Ichiro was brought to Washington to participate in the festival Catharsis on the Mall, which it takes place in the National Mall. And then, yeah, they had as a pillar the recognition with the Mother Earth. It was a very beautiful event, and Ichiro received a great recognition, especially from kids. It was beautiful to see kids jumping around, spending 15 minutes like staring to the piece. It was really, really, really beautiful. And there I met Sevi Medina, who invited us to bring the sculpture to Eaton Hotel. And as I said, the serendipity was amazing, because when I went to the hotel, I found out that it's a creative laboratory, and they are seeking to build community and sharing the spirit of creating, trying to create a better world and to bring awareness of different programs. So it was amazing to be part of that. And then one of the most important people for this project was you, Joe. Really, without you, I don't know how it would be. From the beginning, you support me in all the process, and also taking Ichiro from Washington, D.C. to San Jose, California, after a lot of work, and make the plans to comply with the security required by the states of California. That all these things I learned in the process. So thank you for that. You really helped me a lot. So Ichiro was at Civic outside of the Children Discovery Museum, where was visited by the children of the region, who I believe are the best art critics. They are my inspiration for creating these art pieces. It was, this is a photo that you took, Joe. So it was on display from February to November. And then I remember the day that Joe told me that probably a Silicon Valley company will be interested in buying the artwork. And months later, here we are, very close of the next installation. And yeah, my intention is to show beauty in these creations and inspire the cultures to stand and be giving the recognition they deserve, especially to the tribes of the world. And also, I would like to encourage artists to continue creating and work as a team. And I hope the support to art continues growing and rise human consciousness. And then my advice is to never give up, work hard, and find the flow to continue creating. And for me, it was very important to set my intention every time I was super stressed because all the challenges. I just remember why I'm doing what I do and what's my mission in life. And when I feel very stuck, I meditate, do exercise, go to nature. But my main tips to artists that wants to bring art to another countries is make a lot of drawings and renders, make plans with engineering certified by the city you are going to install your work, because each state requires different regulations. Also study which materials work the best for your piece. Optimize space on packaging, especially if you are doing a big art piece, because that optimizes the cost. And then quote with different shipping companies, get an insurance, have a team you can trust. This is very important. Review contract with lawyers. And yeah, the accountability part is still a challenge for me. I'm learning how to not to have to pay taxes in both countries. But yeah, this is it. I hope these tips will help to another artist. And thank you for inviting me again.
Thanks so much, Marianela. That was wonderful. I think one of the most striking things about this piece, aside from just the beautiful aesthetics of it and the work that went into it, is that everywhere it goes, it has attracted some other opportunity, people that have connected with it, that have then kind of ushered in another era for it. It's the magical roving dinosaur. That was great. Thank you so much. So now we're going to kick it over to Joerg and Jesse. These are the founding members of Foldhaus Collective, Joerg student and Jesse Silver. I also had the pleasure of getting to work with these folks on Playa as their project manager for the honorarium, and am just so thrilled to see the life that this piece has had afterwards. They've been to Hong Kong and Dubai, which I think we're going to cover in this presentation, and I'm going to let you guys take it away.
Cool. Thanks for the intro, Joe. I want to highlight Jesse and I are the founding members. When we started, we were maybe like 5 to 6 people as the core team. Our core team has grown because our art is pretty complex. So there's like 8 or 9 or 10 people that contribute around the year to the art, and then we have obviously a lot of helpers as well. Before we dive into sort of the international work, I want to show really quickly what the art piece that we've done. This is our first piece. It's called Loom. We showed it in 2014 at Burning Man. 10 origami flowers that open and close in response to presence of people, and they also light up at night. The second piece is probably our most famous piece because it's being part of the Smithsonian exhibition and toured around the country and actually around the world, which you'll see later. So those are kinetic mushrooms. They open and close. I want to say the latest piece, not quite true, but the latest piece at Burning Man is this piece, like a 50-foot sphere that has all these kinetic umbrellas that open and close and light up. And the last piece that we just installed in like a month ago, is a retake on Bloom and Lumen. Those are now fully stainless steel. Before it was all plastic, which diffuse the light nicely. But this one is a permanent installation that is all made out of stainless steel. But our focus today is on things that we learned with our installations abroad. We brought them, the mushrooms, to Dubai just after the installation at Burning Man 2016, and then we brought a combination of the flowers and the mushrooms to Hong Kong as part of the Art Basel installation. So we have a few points, like 5 points or so, that we want to share that we learned. I think the first learning is nothing, like no context is more beautiful for the art than Burning Man. I mean, we design our art exclusively for Burning Man. We're so many of us, we do art on the side, and Burning Man gives you a canvas that's just incredible. But it's also, as we know, it's a little bit exclusive. Some people can't afford to come. Some people don't get tickets. Some people can't handle the dust. So bringing the art outside of Burning Man is really rewarding, because you just see a completely different audience. And this, I'm going to share a quick video here. This is the installation in Dubai. We were actually approached by people at Burning Man. They saw our art and asked if we could, a few months later, bring the mushrooms to Dubai, to this festival called D3. It's like in the design district, and it's like an arts and craft festival that happens once a year, and they bring art from all around the world. And quite a different setting than Burning Man, but still in the context of creative arts and creativity, which the weird part of that is it's in a very exclusive high-end design area, and what they mean by design is really like very expensive fashion. So it's yeah, it was fun to be part of it, but it's also like quite a different context. The other, so what was nice about it was that it was open to everybody. Nobody had to pay entrance or anything. You and real people got to see the art, right? Like people who went maybe for shopping or just because it was something to do for that extended weekend. And that's the first time we saw children interact with our art. So you stand on these footpads, and then the mushroom opens, and for kids this was by far the best. And for us it was great to see, because at Burning Man we hadn't seen many kids interact with the art. I'm going to share a second video of our installation in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, we installed this as in 2019 as part of the Art Basel show in April. There's a whole video that our partners did for us. So I'm going to stop talking here for a little bit. Luminous Garden is a garden of 2 origami mushrooms and 1 origami flower, and they're all kinetic and interactive. It is installed in this beautiful mall, and malls can get pretty hectic and stressful as you run through from one store to the next. And we hope that people can take a break here and find their inner child and step on the footpads and activate the mushrooms and lose a little bit their day-to-day stress and just stay here and wonder.
Ideally, the technology kind of sits back and it's not the first thing that people notice, but with our art, typically people do discover this kind of delight. They have that first layer, and then some people choose to kind of step up and like look into the mushroom because they want to know how it works, and so it's that other layer if they're interested in the technological part. I think that moment of discovery is something that, you know, the stores hope that people have when they see something in the window, and we also hope to kind of add something that they weren't expecting to find and spend a minute at, but they see it and kind of maybe change their walking pattern, change their journey, and yeah, explore it and discover something new.
Yeah, so this was in this again, a super exclusive mall, which you know, instead of dust around, you have these expensive shop, and it's situated right at the subway exit. So people taking the subway and going upstairs, they would just walk by, and again, it was really rewarding seeing those just everyday people who don't go to the museum, who just go by either to go shopping or to because they exit or enter the subway, and then interact with the art. So that was rewarding. It was also funny because I think there's another slide. Our partners did a lot of advertising for this. I guess the goal was because it was part of Art Basel, and lots of art audience was there to show, okay, here we are, Pacific Place, that's how the mall was called. Come here and check out our art and buy, spend lots of money maybe. But it was, yeah, it was just very new to us to see our art on, you know, on a big video screen or all over the subway. But it was still fun, and it was nice to see how the partners put so much energy in doing those animations and the graphics and all that. And I think Jesse's going to talk about some other things that come with it.
Yeah, so the you know, we all fall in love with the dust, or I think many of us fall in love with the dust and what it makes things look like, and that magical environment, like atmosphere it gives things. And I think to some extent, like, I mean, I know that I open up my closet and look at my Burning Man stuff, and the dust is like, it almost makes me feel good. Like, it reminds me of how I felt there and all of that. But other people don't feel that way about the dust. And so next slide. So yeah, I mean, we knew that. We knew that, you know, we had to clean up the pieces of art to bring them elsewhere. And so this is on Treasure Island, which is, you know, next to Yerba Buena Island between Oakland and San Francisco. But we put up a gantry, and we spent like a weekend holding up all of the origami and using leaf blowers and compressors and rags with vinegar and like all sorts of stuff to just like absolutely clean like every part of it we could. And even so, and so like we did that. We like really tried to clean it. And then next slide, you can see they even mentioned this like in their things, that like, oh, do you know, like these giant origami sculptures survived like numerous dust storms. And so there's this like weird acknowledgement that this is Burning Man art, and they want like the credibility of it having been there and survived the environment and being real and authentic. But on the other side, I will tell you, like, we got questions from them while we were there on like, why is it so dirty? Can you patch this part? Why isn't it pure white? Like, you know, and it's, I understand, because from one perspective, yeah, it's from Burning Man. On the other perspective, it's in this beautiful, pristine mall with like marble floors and polished brass railings. And so anything that looks kind of used or anything that looks kind of weathered a little bit doesn't like carry the same joy for other people as it might for us. And so that was an interesting learning. I you know, I'm sure other people's art may or may not fall into that category, but I think when people start to view something as an art piece in a setting, they expect something from it that maybe they don't expect in a different setting with the, you know, at Burning Man itself. So that was kind of new to us. You know, I tried to figure out what to call this slide, but going somewhere else, going to Dubai, going to Hong Kong, it is like preparing to install at a Burning Man that's just unlike a Burning Man you've been to, but it has the same kind of mindset where you're like, I got to bring everything I might need. Like if a connector comes off, a solder connection breaks, if I have to patch something, you know, like you just start bringing these random tools. And so I took this like knolling picture just because I thought it was kind of cool, but this is all the stuff that was in my suitcase, not even the stuff that we like shipped via a crate. And it's not like, I mean, certainly Hong Kong and Dubai are probably two places on the planet where you could ultimately find anything you needed, but the amount of time you're going to spend to solve a problem will kill a day or so of work, you know? And then there's the adventure of like, how do you even find that thing? You might not speak the language or know how to travel. And so it is a really weird thing of just putting everything in your suitcase, hoping they don't question you at the airport for why you have all this stuff in your suitcase. And just hoping that the stuff you need to fix can be fixed, because it's, you know, our art is very technical, and there's electronics and computer stuff and lots of wiring and mechanical work. And so you just never know what's gonna happen. You also don't know quite what the environment will present to you. So this is a very in-process picture of us setting up in Dubai. And everything looks kind of fine. We have tons of room to work. The environment was nice. The weather was great. The people were wonderful. All of our stuff arrived. So all of that was great, but things just happen, right? And so we had specified ahead of time the kind of equipment we needed. We needed a very tall gantry, or we needed a like a telehandler to be able to move the mushrooms up and down while we assembled them. But it turned out, unbeknownst to the event organizers, that the weight loading in this area was like essentially you couldn't put a telehandler or a reach forklift over this because it would weigh too much. There was a garage underneath this this floor right here. So those are the things that even if you communicate ahead of time, like they just didn't know that until they tried to get a telehandler there, and somebody said, oh, you can't get one. And so we ended up having to solve the problem using a couple articulated boom lifts or cherry pickers like you see in the back. But we didn't use them in the way they're really designed to be used. You might even notice on the wheels, they're wrapped in foam and wrapped in plastic because they were even afraid that us using that on the surface would leave a bunch of tire marks. So you're just having to solve problems all the time. Even another detail, in front of my knee, there's a bag from a hardware store. I had to go to a hardware store in Dubai to buy a bunch of hex bolts. And then, of course, realized after I bought them that they were all like metric, and we hadn't brought any metric stuff because the US is still, for whatever reason, on imperial. So little things like that. But you're always solving problems, and in that way, it does feel like Burning Man. But in another way, it's just an interesting adventure, and it's always a trade-off of like, do you bring everything you own or just parts of it and hope for the best? This is us setting up in that mall while the mall is shut down. One thing that you can't really see from this photo, I guess you can, is all the shops are dark. That's because this is an active mall, and because of kind of the appearances of it, they couldn't have us installing this while people were in the mall. And so, that's just not a thing we're used to. At Burning Man, people like seeing things built. I think and just depends on maybe the culture or the setting, but they really wanted to remain kind of this pristine view. And so we worked all night. From the second the mall closed, we started working, and then we had to be all cleaned up and wrapped up by the time the mall opened. And they literally made covers to cover everything at night so that people couldn't see like what was going on. So just things you have to prepare for. This was hilarious. One of the lessons we had is I did say that you have to prepare for everything. On the other hand, we've occasionally made the mistake of not really relying as much on our partners as we should, because they're really great. Like if you have a host, if you have someone who's having you come over and install art and they're really engaged and they're asking you questions and they want to help, like many of them have been able to do things that we just never would have even thought of doing. Like as an example, Joerg had sent a layout, a PDF layout of how the fake grass should be in the mall and where the mushrooms should go. We didn't even remotely expect that they could or would print this out at a 1-to-1 scale and use it as the layout diagram for the entire exhibit. So you can see at the top of this, it literally says 16,600 millimeters by whatever. So just certain things are easy in certain parts of the world and are not easy in others. It didn't occur to me to even incur the expense or find a printer this big, but sure enough, if it's really easy and cheap to have a printout this big, it's really easy to lay it on the ground and use it as a perfect layout for everything that comes after. Similarly, there are really talented craftspeople. This is an example of, our mushrooms are meant to be anchored into the playa, basically. We've installed them on grass, things like that, and you bury parts of it into the ground for anchoring. But if it's on a hard floor and you can't drill through it because it's beautiful marble, you need to kind of put weights on it so it doesn't move, but you still want people to be able to walk up to the mushrooms to experience them. So this crew in Hong Kong built the most beautiful mounds, essentially, that they put grass over, these beautiful complex curves that perfectly came together. It was all radius bent plywood with a steel understructure, and all these people, I mean, I think every single person you see here is just working on making those mounds and that astroturf look beautiful. And so this is what it looks like to have a really good partner. Again, another picture of the setup. You can see the mound is all set for the flower on the right and the mushroom in the middle. You can almost barely like not see it because it's so well done. But again, all that credit goes to them. They did such a good job of constructing that. And again, what it means to have a good partner that is like jointly invested in creating a good experience for people. An example on the other, same idea, but a different kind of thing. This is an engineering analysis, essentially, of the wind loading for the shrooming, so one of the mushrooms. Talking about regulations and things, certain environments, certain locales need evidence that your piece won't blow over, or they need evidence of how much weight they need to put on it to keep it from blowing over, things like that. And so, although we do work like this when we make our pieces to make sure that they won't blow over at Burning Man, this is a perfect example of one of our partners in Dubai having contracted I think it's German, but I might be wrong about that. A German engineering analysis, essentially, of the wind loading and forces involved if a strong wind were to blow on one of the mushrooms, and kind of what those forces would look like and how much weight was needed. And so again, there are really talented, experienced people in other parts of the world, and we're increasingly learning, like, if you have an engaged partner, they will really come with great skills to the table and great information.
Yeah, all that for a 3-day event, by the way.
That's also the case. This is kind of us admitting, we'll have a lot of time for questions. I think this is kind of the end, but this is us admitting that we have not cracked a bunch of how to do this in a way that feels great. And what I mean by that is, it is great to show our art all over the world and have people look at it and experience it, and people from different cultures and all of that. It is great to repurpose work and have work that you made once now be shown 10, 20, 30 times, whatever, right? Because it's bigger audiences, you get more effect from the materials and from your effort. What's not great is, those 5 mushrooms to be shipped to Dubai in these crates, and most of them are like the size of my car. They're not small. I think the wood and just the pallets probably weighed the same amount as our actual artwork. And we don't feel great about that. Like, to be honest, I'm not sure how to, we're not sure what to do about this kind of thing in the future. If you want to make art, you want people to see it, but that's a big trade-off. One of the things we've definitely learned is, if there's something that's, for example, really heavy, if we have a steel support structure that's a piece of our art, in some cases it makes sense to have someone just make that again on the other side of the planet, because the cost of shipping and the environmental cost of shipping that thing will outweigh the little bit of steel that you need to use. But we want to be candid. We haven't solved this, even if someone's willing to pay for it. And I see one of the questions over here, like, we because the shipping is so complicated, and the tariffs and duties and the customs and all of that is so complicated, we've taken the approach, which might seem like not being great partners. From day one, we kind of start with the approach, like, you all are in charge of finding out how to ship this, and the customs and the insurance and all of that. Like, we will install it, we will make sure it works, we'll create a beautiful environment, all of that, and we'll work with you on the other stuff. But we are not, like, we're all volunteers, we have other jobs. Like, so we definitely rely on them, and we've gotten lucky in most cases where they're willing to have freight forwarders and insurance people and all that stuff lined up to do that work. But it is not trivial, and Marianela mentioned that. Like, there's a lot of paperwork and stuff that is an entirely new skill set that none of us have. Like, I don't know what code it is when you ship a giant mushroom to another part of the planet. I remember looking through a book actually trying to figure that out, and I was like, I don't know what this is. Yeah, I think that might be it. Any more slides after this one?
Nope.
I think that's it. Yeah, so definitely open to answer any questions. I'll pass it back to Joe, and you can lead it from there.
Yeah, that was great, you guys. Thank you. Q&A always goes super fast. I want to go in a million different directions, but I think since we have just a little bit of time, I'd like to dig into some of the nitty-gritty stuff. Like, if each of you could explain a little bit more about how these opportunities came your way, and once it came time to decide if you wanted to move forward or not, what was the smell test that made you feel comfortable entering into partnerships? Is there any language around contracts that you would stay away from or like to have included for art? Anything around just kind of that kind of framing of a partnership would be great. Let's start with Marianela.
Sorry. Can you repeat the question, please, Joe?
Sure, it was a long one.
Yeah.
Just anything you learned about entering to the partnership with San Jose, or what made you feel comfortable and want to say yes? What in the contract worked for you or you would like to do differently? Anything around framing an installation agreement?
Yeah, well, I learned a lot. It was a good preparation. Yeah, I find out the importance of the insurance, because in Burning Man we pay for the shipping insurance, but we didn't do anything inside of the event. And in San Jose, because of the safety of the kids and also the problem with the homeless people, I don't know if you remember when someone tried to steal the head of the Ichiro, and they almost break the metal neck.
Very hard to forget.
Yes. So someone was trying to take the head out, and they tried for hours, I guess, but thankfully they couldn't do it. And to know that there is an insurance that will support you in case something bad happened is really good. So that was a good lesson for me. And in terms of contracts, I really recommend to have a lawyer that helps you to go through every point, because once you sign up something, you have to do it. Yeah.
Joerg and Jesse, do you want to add anything about your experience?
Jesse, I don't know. I think the contract thing is definitely an important thing that we learned in our most recent installation. I think we've been lucky, like nothing went wrong, and somehow I think we got lucky. The latest installation, like we forgot to add, you pay for transportation, you pay for the shipping, like making all that clear in the contract. The contract didn't say that, so we ended up having to pay for that in that last case, or they paid for some of it, but there's a lot of cost that comes with traveling and accommodation and all these things. So it's making sure that that's all in the contract. And as Jesse said, we try to really offload everything to the person who wants that art, and make, like, say, okay, this is the price for the art, and then these are the expenses that you're going to pay, and you take care of the shipping. But so yeah, it's worth looking into that. You also asked the question earlier, how do we gauge, like, if something is something is solid or not? Like, how do we judge? Like, we get a bunch of requests on our website for installing the art, and we can't, because we're volunteer, to install these things and to travel, and we have to take time off work. We have to be very selective in a way. We can't do it all, and it's really like engaging in conversation and seeing how far people want to go. It's often the unexpected that happen. Like there's a nice anecdote with Shroom and Loom. Like at Burning Man, there was like some dude leaning on the mushroom, and I told him, like, hey, please don't lean on the art. It's fragile. And then his girlfriend came to me. Oh, so you're the artist. Would you be interested in bringing those mushrooms to Dubai in December? And that's very random. It's kind of felt like the girlfriend is sort of saving her boyfriend and distracting and being all charming. But but that turned, like, she contacted us again, and that turned into something, but it was completely unexpected. We didn't, it sounded good, but I mean, it's just like, communicating with people and trying to gauge it out and cost it out well. I think that's important. Like, really be upfront with, like, it's going to cost you that much, and then people say, yeah, that's fine, or they say, well, no.
Great. Yeah, sometimes you never know where things are going to come from. I see Dina has a few more practical questions about what other items besides shipping do you suggest contractually obliging the client to pay? Anything else around contracts that you think would be really useful for artists to know?
I think so that's a good question. So shipping for the art is one thing, right? There's insurance, Marianela mentioned, but there's insurance for both the art and also liability while it's there, right? In case it falls over or someone gets hurt by it. So those are probably different things. Like, one's for loss and one's for harm, essentially. There might be customs fees or duties. Again, we typically stay out of that, but if it actually costs something to get something into a country because of whatever code it represents, that's something that someone else should cover, in our opinion. And then, to Joerg's point, but to be more specific, like, it takes a bunch of us to set up the art, and it's very hard to have external people not involved in the project really do that installation with us. And so we just came back from Silver Spring, Maryland, and even there we had to have 5 people. I can't remember. I think 5 people there with us. But think about that, that's 5 round trip flights across the country. It's 5 hotel rooms for a week each, plus all the meals, all of that stuff. And even if they're all willing to take vacation and work for free, which they are because it's Foldhaus, but that is not a free thing. And so that's a big bulk that someone has to decide. Is there an installation fee that's separate from the showing fee? Yeah, so I would say that's, I don't know if anybody has anything else. Those are some big ticket items.
Yeah, that's a great advice, Jesse. For example, me, I had to, when I sent Ichiro first time to Washington, D.C., I had to pay a customs fee. And because the sculpture never came back to Mexico, they will never give me that money. So that's a loss. And yeah, well, you basically learn in the process because no one really explain you how to do things. And your presentation was really great. I love the slides where you show all your tools, because yeah, then you arrive there and you have to go and get them. Yes, it's important to bring all your tools or to ask for a list of materials you require.
Yeah, maybe one tiny more thing I'll add. What I think gets lost in translation sometimes is also people want a piece of art that they've already seen, but there might be additional cost in installing that piece of art in a new place. And I think this has come up for us a bunch of times where it's like, oh, we want the mushrooms already exist. So you'd think the showing fee and the install fee is it, but to that point around, like, well, we can't dig them into the ground. They have to be supported somehow. And that could easily be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of ballast or outriggers or support. And so you have to really make it clear, like, what work will be required to adapt this piece for your environment. And are we paying for that because you wanted our art, or are you paying for that because it's your environment? Like, I see that one overlooked a lot, actually.
One more technical one, and we'll get into maybe a couple fun ones. Can you share a little bit about your plans for maintenance, or if anything goes wrong with the piece once you've left?
I think Joerg's smiling because he has a really good story about that one after I left.
Yeah, I think it's really hard when you are, like, our pieces originally, they're designed for Burning Man, and you're there all the time, and so if something goes wrong, you just fix it, or figure out how to fix it, and you bring whatever you think might be going wrong. In Hong Kong, we put new motors and we put all new LEDs into the installation to make sure it doesn't go wrong, because it was really high stakes. It was like in the small, and that was their one piece, and so fair enough. The crew we installed, the crew left. I was still there because I had to, I don't know, give a talk or something, and then the day the crew had left, one flower stopped working, and that was a problem, because you can only fix it at night, and it turned out being the motor, most likely the motor. And if you have to fix something overnight, and you're somewhere where there's no Amazon overnight, or I guess those motors you can't get them on overnight anyways. But so in that case, we were lucky, because I had a friend in Shenzhen who, through like Taobao, ordered like some random motors, and gave them, like, I came to the border and picked up the motors, and they were wrong, but like I had to hack something and put it in a night with some tools. It's something can always go wrong. So I think the best advice is on technical stuff. Yeah, make it easily swappable, and have backup, and I mean, it's hard when you're far away to fix. Like, plan, maybe this is another advice, plan for in the budget, plan for, like, you have to fly there at least once to fix something, and either make sure they pay for it, or you put it in the budget, and just assume that like there's one trip you'll have to make, and some extra cost that you don't want to eat. But that's that can be challenging. But I mean, ultimately, try to design it in a way so it doesn't fail, which is easier said than done.
I want to say, if before we hit 1 o'clock, which we just did, if people want to drop off, that's fine. We're going to stop recording at this point, and maybe hold on for just a couple more questions from Joerg and Jesse and Marianela. Marianela, did you want to answer that question as well? Yep, you're still on mute.
Yeah. Well, I'm very. I think the way Joerg described this is very accurate. But as I said before, you learn in the process. For me, it's been like that. And yeah, to try to make a list of all the, as much as the expenses you can have after. For example, yeah, I never imagined that I have to give maintenance to, for example, what happened with the Ichiro when they start to try to install the neck. But some of the costs can be absorbed by you, but better to increment a little bit, maybe the budget from the beginning, so you can absorb that expenses and not to get into any fights or anything.
Great. Maybe just a couple more questions and then we'll wrap. I'm curious, any direction you want to go with this. What is your biggest regret, or what are you happiest that you did in planning or design or execution, anything about doing this work?
I don't know if I'll just talk since nobody else talks. I don't know if we have any regrets, at least on the work that we just showed, other than doing the installation, for example, in Hong Kong was really rewarding for us, and but it sort of came at the cost that it was so highly advertised everywhere. People loved it. It's great. And then, like a few weeks later, or like a few months later, we had some people contact us with replicas of the mushrooms, and saying like, hey, this is, or actually asking us how to make them, and then they showed us pictures, and then like several people try to replicate them and commercialize them, and so it's not a regret, but it's like something that we realized, wow, it's copying the stuff is real, and we don't want to commercialize that that it's art, it's like it's one-off, and so that was a little bit of an awakening.
Definitely disappointing, but yeah, happens a lot.
It's a compliment, right, on one hand, but it's also it's also a little bit frustrating because you don't want to have if these things show up elsewhere, maybe not as beautiful, or they fail or whatever, and then it's your reputation.
Yeah, definitely. Marianela, anything from you?
Yeah, well, to me it happens also. A lot of my friends were sending me about the copyrights. I did the registration in Mexico, but no worldwide. And I remember last November during, or was February, I don't remember, but during an art festival in Tulum, some of my friends were like, "Oh, this is your artwork, this is your artwork." And I was like, "No, it's from," so one of the team with who I built Ichiro, he did separately this art piece that was almost the same name, everything. I was like, whoa, I wish I will know this could happen. So my advice is to register everything you do.
One. Okay, one more. Tell me a little bit about how you have experienced, what differences people have experienced your work based on the context. I know both teams mentioned it was fun to watch kids interact with the work, that you don't see that happening quite as much at Burning Man.
I have one, the flip side of that.
Sure.
So it is absolutely lovely, and I mean this genuinely, to see kids and people of all cultures enjoying your work, like, for sure. One of the things, though, that apparently happens if you stick interactive art in the middle of a mall is kids will, what's the right word? Kids will use the you-know-what out of it. Like, they will stomp up and down on those actuator pads, and they'll like run, like race around the mushrooms, and they're like, because I don't think it's like, oh, they're misbehaving in that particular culture. I don't mean that, but I just mean, like, in that setting, I think it's like, oh, it's a mall, it's like a playground. Like, it's very different from being in a museum, where it's like there's a different relationship to the art. So, for example, like, those foot pads took a real beating. Like, kids would literally just running starts and then just like slam their body into it because they just thought it was like a fun button to push. So context means a lot, apparently.
Yeah, I find that people in Burning Man was much more respectful with the artwork than in Washington, D.C., for example. Because in Burning Man, normally the kids are with the parents all the time. And I remember this little beautiful child, and he came running to see the dinosaur, and he was like, "But Daddy, my playa name is T-Rex, like the dinosaur." And he was all astonished, running around, but the father was super respectful, showing him and trying to explain what it was. And in Washington, I remember these three kids, they were with their parents, and they just run and jump on the dinosaur, and they was like trying to take out one finger, and the parents said nothing. So yeah, for me, I surprisingly find that burners are more aware and more respectful with the artwork.
Yeah. Wonderful, or maybe not so wonderful if someone's pulling out your piece. I think that's a wrap for us. I really want to thank our speakers. We will drop there we go, links for if you want to follow either of these artists. Super appreciative of your time, and I wanted to acknowledge Sage, who's been in the wings. Thank you so much for everything you've done for this call and this entire series. We will be adding this to the last of the YouTube playlist, and if you want to sign up for the email list, we'll let you know when that's come out. Also, feel free to check out everything else we've done in this last year. We're going to regroup and see where this work takes us into 2021. Thank you all for joining.